couple of minutes late there, just getting the IT to work. But welcome to the next session. This is going to be looking at heritage and well-being for older people. We've got 3 papers again. Like we've done for the other sessions, we're going to go through all 3 papers, and then I'll get all 3 speakers to come up, and we'll ask some questions. So first of all, I'd like to ask Jessica Bowden from Heriot-Watt University to come up. Jessica's going to talk to us about photo voice with older adults, exploring the role of heritage and historic places in ageing and well-being. Jessica.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, my name is Jess. I am a final year PhD student with Heriot-Watt University, hopefully finishing at the end of this year, depending on how quickly I can write the next 40,000 words. And I'm going to talk to you today about some of the research that I've done over the past couple of years, looking at the relationship between older people and their local historic environment, and then also how historic places can support people whilst they're aging. So I'm going to start off by providing a little bit of context, the background and the methods, and then I'm going to explain some of the results and some of the conclusions that I've made so far. So place plays a really significant role in well-being. And lots of place-based research acknowledges that if people feel happy and they feel safe and they feel like they belong in their local area, that improves their experiences of well-being as well. And within this, historic places are really important for communities. So they represent civic pride, they represent communal identity, they represent, continuity, where as a society we have been and what we've achieved. And they can positively influence the sense of place and the sense of belonging that local people experience. However, research demonstrates that people don't really value historic places for any inherent historicness, but actually they value historic places for really deeply personal reasons relating to their heritage and their memory and their sense of place. And that is what I explored in some considerable depth. So I looked at heritage and memory and sense of place, and more personal dimensions of place attachment, because these are all really deeply personal. They relate to identity, they relate to belonging, and they relate to how people view their local places. In order to have historic places that people can connect with and can suit the needs of local communities, it's essential for us, the managers of the historic environment, to understand how local people value and use such places. So I looked at all of that, and then I looked at how historic places can contribute to well-being in older people. And that's what I'm going to focus on mainly. So this research was focused on people still living in the community rather than those who were in residential care or had dementia or Alzheimer's or anything. They required a different level of consideration. But as people grow, often they are met with age-related constraints, so a decline in physical mobility. This means they spend less time travelling and more time in the local area. So local places, they heighten in importance as you grow older. And ageing in place, it refers to the ability to remain in your local area with some level of independence without going into residential care. Now, added to this is the idea of ageing in the right place, which encompasses various dimensions of health and well-being, including housing and transport and social participation and the opportunities to fulfill meaningful roles into older age. Now, ageing in the right place also encompasses social and educational needs. For example, UNESCO has a big ongoing lifelong learning promotion, which encourages people across the life course to continue non-formal and formal methods of education. Basically, I contend that the historic environment can play a significant role in supporting people to meet some of these needs, to support people to age in the right place, therefore improving the overall well-being in older adults. And then I'm going to talk about some of the methods and the results that I used as well. So the main methodology that I used for this study was photo voice, which is where the participants took their own photographs. I conducted this research in Nottinghamshire, so in 3 different areas. Each location had 2 separate workshops, so there was sort of an introduction and an explanation of the task, and then they went away and took their photographs, and I did provide them prompts for that, so some questions, Like, are there historic places where you feel safe, where you feel like you belong, where you have positive memories, where, perhaps you've been with friends and family. And then there was a separate group meeting after that, which was kind of like a very informal, semi-structured interview where I recorded everything that everybody said as well. There were 17 participants in total, aged 56 to 86, and somewhere between 200 and 300 photographs. I can't recall the exact number, but quite a lot of photographs. And then I also supplemented this data by having some semi-structured interviews with professionals who work in the heritage or the ageing sector, including both Linda and Desi, which is actually why I'm here today. But yeah, I did that as well. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about the specific wellbeing benefits that the Photo Voice project and the interviews revealed. So I've split them into two categories, into personal benefits and communal benefits. And I'm going to start off by talking about the personal benefits. So, there we go. One of the biggest things about historic places is that they very often represent a safe place to be, a safe space to spend time in. So older people who perhaps left the workforce, they have more time to fill. And it can be a struggle to find places to go to fill this time meaningfully. But to avoid becoming isolated or simply remaining in the home without social connections, you have to sort of get out and about. And historic sites, they're generally very welcoming, they're friendly, they have clean and reliable facilities, they've got cafes, they've got toilets. So that, they're safe places to go, but they're also spaces where you can go and just be. So you're much less likely to be questioned or looked at strangely if you're sitting on a bench in a museum for a prolonged period of time or in an archaeological site. You can even strike up conversations with strangers, and it's viewed as something that's more normal, more acceptable. And it brings people into a social environment where you can be put in contact with others, and possibly others who have, very similar interests to you as well. And the following quotes, they are an example of this, and of how historic places can facilitate safe spaces for older people. So the first one, it gets people in a social environment, but they also just represent the ability to dwell. And I'll give you 30 seconds to just read that. Okay, I think that's probably enough time. The second key personal benefit for older people engaging with the historic environment and with heritage activities is that it provides meaningful ways to spend time and the opportunity to engage in enriching activities. So one of the main ones is volunteer opportunities, and places where you can gain new skills and knowledge. So you can visit heritage sites alone, you can visit heritage sites with friends, you can take part in organised groups or activities, but volunteering is a big thing that older adults do as a means of filling their time. So it's a way of keeping mentally and physically active, learning new skills, participating in enriching activities, and it really closely aligns with UNESCO's lifelong learning as well. And then it's also a way of giving back to society and sort of sharing your own personal memories and lived experiences with the younger generation too. And then the third key benefit, or personal benefit I should say, is that it can make people feel like they're part of something bigger, so part of the wider community. Part of sort of time. It gives you a sense of continuity, and it gives people captivating and immersive experiences. And research does support the idea that this is really, really beneficial for mental health. So it can sort of remove people from the boredoms or the trivialities of everyday life, the struggles, the stresses of which there are quite a lot of at the moment. It can be a distraction from that. And research on awe as well has proved that awe is really, really beneficial for people's mental state. And viewing yourself as a small cog in a large machine, again, it really positively influences mental well-being. And I have a couple more quotes here. The first one was from a couple who took part in the Photo Voice project. They went to a historic minster in Nottinghamshire, where the wife, her family had been there in the 17th century, and they said they found it really, really moving, the sense of continuity. And then the second quote is just, these places, historic places, they had a bit more beauty in our lives, a bit of something out of the ordinary. Okay, let's get that one now. And then on to communal benefits. So one of the most important and the most unique benefits of interaction with historic places is the opportunity it provides to form and then reinforce communal bonds. So it really does boost community cohesion because they enable people to come together, often with a common interest or a common purpose or a shared goal, and spend time together and strengthen those communal ties. Now, this can be through individual visits and meeting with the members of the community. It can be through visiting with friends and family. It can be through participating in organised programmes, skills, arts and crafts, knit and natters, things like that, object handling, or it can be through participating in volunteer work. But the historic environment or the heritage activity essentially works to bring people together, but it's the meaningful community engagement that's a really important end result of that. Now, the second thing, and this links quite closely actually, is through bringing community members into heritage sites, you can really help challenge old-fashioned traditions and the sort of antiquated class divides and the sense of, I didn't learn about history in school, I don't know much about this, I don't belong in a place like this. And through encouraging people, specifically older adults as well, who may, have sort of lower confidence, you can transform sentiments like that into, I can go there now. I can now see that my local heritage site, museum, castle is for me as well. And that was something that really highlighted itself in the research, that through actively encouraging locals to come in and to take ownership over their local environment, you create a larger sense of confidence, and people feel confident getting out and about and going into places that previously wouldn't have felt accessible for them. I've kind of covered the next part already, ownership over the local environment, through encouraging locals to visit their local historic places, sharing local heritage with them and making them feel welcome. That encourages a sense of ownership. Now, ownership's really, really important when you're thinking about the sustainability of heritage sites, because it encourages stewardship, where people feel like they want to protect and they want to conserve their historic places. And that goes for the physical building as well, but also for cultural knowledge and cultural heritage. If older people are encouraged to get out and about, they share their cultural memories and knowledge and lived experiences, and they pass that down to younger generations, and they can engage in intergenerational bonding as well. And then this one was my favourite quote across the whole project, actually. This couple said, "We've got a sense of community, and we think you should put more into your community than you get out of it. Because heritage isn't just bricks and mortar, is it? Heritage has to be carried on. Younger people have to take things forward into the future." And alongside that, they submitted a photograph of some villagers repainting their local railings. So when we're talking about, historic places, the historic environment, it doesn't just have to be museums and castles. It can be high streets and villages and towns as well, and anything that local people identify with and get their sense of belonging from. So therefore, acknowledging all of those personal and communal benefits, I suggest that there are two key ways that the historic environment and engagement with heritage activities can support people to age in place, but more importantly, age in the right place within local communities that meet older people's needs and support their overall well-being. So firstly, historic places can support aging by facilitating and supporting community engagement, enabling older adults to meet like-minded others. This can lead to friendships, this can lead to more informal networks of support within the environment, and it can encourage people to get out and about, spend more time in the environment whilst they are pursuing and encouraging these new relationships and this new knowledge and these new skills. And this can be really beneficial for both mental and physical well-being. And then secondly, through providing opportunity for educational and enriching activities and allowing people to maintain meaningful roles into older age. Now, volunteering is a really big part of this, learning new skills, participating in enriching activities, sharing knowledge with younger generations, and this further contributes to mental and physical well-being, and it helps older people keep active as well. So therefore, I must be running out of time now. Heritage and historic places therefore contribute to an overall band of support that enables people to age in place, but more importantly, to enjoy the area they live in, to maintain connection to society, to maintain mental and physical fitness, to access informal support, and to age in the right place. But when thinking about, as a heritage site, how do we go about engaging in this? We've seen a lot of it already today, but it must come from the site itself. Historic places have the responsibility of opening their doors and making themselves more welcoming to locals who might not feel like they belong in that spot to begin with. And they can do this through running more activities, encouraging older people to come and visit, engaging with personal lived memories and heritage rather than just the time period their site or their activity comes from, through developing partnerships with the local community groups, having more of a presence in the community, through using social media, and even through hiring people such as community engagement coordinators. And I'm quite biased on that because I am a community engagement coordinator, and running things like social prescribing projects as well, or even something as small as offering discounted cups of teas for retired people or for people over the age of 60. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. That was fantastic. I really like the concept of aging in place. Yeah, really, really nice. Right. Our next speaker is Helen Walbridge, who is going to talk to us about remembering yesterday, supporting today, using cultural heritage to enhance the well-being of people living with dementia. Helen, thank you.
Right, good afternoon. My name's Helen Walbridge. I'm a community archaeologist and I freelance as Hampshire Community Heritage. This presentation is based on my personal experiences of using heritage-based activities in the community and how it improves the lives of well-being of people living with dementia. My interest in this developed when I met Dr. Kellen Lee, a psychologist who founded a dementia care hub near Southampton. Her PhD research was in material citizenship and the importance of personal possessions in providing the comfort and empowerment of people in care homes. And this really resonated with me because in heritage, we're caring for the material culture of the past. And we know that connecting people with the past has fantastic results for wellbeing. Since this meeting, I've worked one afternoon a week at the Dementia Care Hub, implementing some of these heritage-based activities I'm going to explain to you. So let's just have a quick look at what is dementia. Dementia is an umbrella term for more than 100 different illnesses that affect the brain, of which the Alzheimer's disease is the most common. 1 in 3 people born in the UK today will sadly develop dementia. And if you're diagnosed before the age of 65, that's considered young onset. Dementia is a progressive illness that affects the whole body, not just the memory. So the Alzheimer's Society run a really good training course called Dementia Friends. I'd absolutely recommend that to anybody that wants to find out more. And they use a bookcase analogy to explain memory loss. And they say, imagine a bookcase as tall as you are. Your most recent memories are at the top. What you've had for lunch and who you've met today. All your other memories are ordered chronologically on all the shelves below, right down to your earliest childhood memories. If you sadly develop dementia, your bookcase will start to rock, and the memories at the top will fall out first. And the rocking will continue as the memories fall out until it settles around the ages of 10 to 30, years old, when you've made those memories, 10 to 30. So for a 75-year-old today, their memories are in the 1960s and the 1970s. This is called the memory bump, this 10 to 30 years. And understanding this is the key to relating back to a person's past. So how can heritage improve the well-being? Well, interactions with material culture from our past trigger memories and provide a sense of comfort and empowerment, enabling people to carry out tasks. People describe dementia as a fog. Some days it's more dense than others. So if somebody's remembering the 1960s, the modern world is quite a confusing place, and lots of things they may be looking for have disappeared. So perhaps on a foggy day, they'll want to make a cup of tea, they'll go to the kitchen, look for a whistling kettle to put on a gas hob. And if they don't find that, they don't recognise the electric kettle as how we now make a cup of tea, and they're going to have to go without that cup of tea. Similarly, if they want to make a phone call, if they can't find a corded landline, they're not going to recognise a black screen of a mobile phone as what we use to make a phone call. Now, I love to go to a little local vintage tea room in Havant. It's called the 1940s, a really good play on words there. And you see the people come in and they settle down. The tea's served in teapots with cosies, bone china cups and plates. There's 1940s music playing, and all around the walls are objects from the 1940s. And you just see the old people absolutely relaxed. They're transported back in time, and their laughter and the memories begin to flow. And they don't realise they're experiencing reminiscence therapy. So we use reminiscence therapy at the Dementia Care Hub to promote people's memories. It's a great tool. It's multisensory. It uses familiar objects, sights, sounds, smells, or tastes to trigger memories from our past. Experiencing and validating these memories strengthens people's sense of identity and belonging. Discussing the past promotes cognitive stimulation. Even in a person where their verbal communication is deteriorating, they are still experiencing the emotion and experiencing the memories, and you may see that in the body language if you look closely. Sharing life experiences and wisdom creates a sense of pride and achievement and promotes deep interpersonal connections with family members and caregivers. We encourage our members to bring in things from their past that we can discuss with them. It helps us to learn about the person and to see the person, not the illness. Reminiscence sessions are really good fun. They generate lots of positive emotions. So this chap, he shows a lot of body language when we interact with him. And his daughter picks him up and says, he was absolutely buzzing today. I asked him what he did. He can't remember what he did, but he said he's had a really great day. He goes home happy, and that positive emotion lasts longer than the memory. He remains positive for a good few hours after the sessions. So the best way to explain reminiscing is to try. And I tried to think of something that would work in this format that might engage everybody. So let's have a go with this. Put your hand up, please, if you remember Woolworths. I think, yeah, that's everybody. Perfect. All right, so this is the exact Woolworths I grew up with, just outside Southampton. This is how it looks in my memory. I remember being 4 or 5 and looking at all the toys and all the aisles, which obviously expanded just before Christmas. I remember the pick and mix. It had a really kind of smooth handrail that ran around the outside. And being eye height to it, I could just see all the colourful wrappers and I could smell the chocolate inside. My first school uniform came from the Ladybird collection, the little red dress. And when I had to take stationery to school, I'd be really excited when the brochure came, looking through to see all the different things I was going to buy. I eagerly awaited the latest releases of my favourite artists' tapes and then later CDs at Woolworths. I even bought my first Valentine's card in Woolworths, having to scout around the shelves to make sure there's no one from school before I went to the till. And my children's clothes, first baby clothes and all the baby paraphernalia was all bought in Woolworths. So you see there are lots of memories for me from sort of 4 to 32, all happened in Woolworths, and perhaps it might have prompted some of your memories of Woolworths. So that was purely visual, but they did still have some sensory links there, the smell of the chocolate. But reminiscence is most powerful when it does involve multi-sensory sensations. So as archaeologists, we're quite in tune with this. If you've ever held a hand axe and felt the way that your fingers naturally fall over the position it did for the people who made it and used it all those years ago. Somebody who's used tools all their life, they pick up a plane or a chisel. Again, that weight of it, the fit of it in your hand, maybe even the smell. They're all very powerful emotions. And we are making these connections today with the things that we interact with, but we just don't realise yet, but they will come in importance later. So I tried again to think of something that we could all have a sensory reaction to. So put your hands up again if you remember Izal medicated toilet tissue. It was a bit split. Some younger people didn't have the pleasure. So for me, instantly, I can smell it, right? It smelled really bad. It reminds me of the outside toilets at school. They were dark, they were damp, they smelt musty. And in the winter, there was ice in the bottom of the bowl. And then you had to use Izal toilet tissue, which if you've never used it, it was brown, not a good start. It rustled and crinkled, very much like a greaseproof texture. It smelled really bad, and it was absolutely useless for its intended purpose. So there, quite a few senses have been promoted even from just a picture, but, imagine if we actually had that to touch. Wendy Mitchell was a great advocate for dementia. She was diagnosed with young onset age 58, and sadly she died just a couple of weeks ago. Her middle of 3 books, What I Wish People Knew About Dementia, she collaborated with her friends, and they were able to explain really well what it's like to live with dementia and how it affects your life. I was really interested in her coping strategy of a memory room. And if I just read you this small extract, she says, "The smell of leather, the scent of my daughter's first T-bar shoes, which I kept in a box. These treasures are kept in the spare bedroom of my home, the place I call my memory room. It is a sanctuary where happy memories captured on film fill spaces on every wall. It's where I go when I need to sit and feel calm, surrounded by the people and places that have made me so happy. I've only got to open the lid of that box containing the shoes, and I'm there again, encouraging tiny feet into scuffed red shoes, out of the door and on the way to school." Wendy was really good at being able to explain her feelings. Interestingly, research has shown that memory of smell and music are stored in different parts of our brain that are not so affected by dementia. So these are great areas to tap into for reminiscence. So in heritage settings, we are keepers of people's memories. Almost anything could spark a memory for someone. And as I explained, memories are strongest between the ages of 10 and 30 years. So this is our late years of education, maybe college, university, sporting achievements, strong friendships, meeting partners, dancing, music, holidays, travel, maybe getting married, and depending on your age, memories of your early children's lives. So all of these things can promote good memories and well-being. I'm just going to skip a few slides because we're running out of time. So what I'm really passionate about trying to encourage people to do is to take heritage into the community to help these people. Lots of people won't be able to visit museums, so they really need heritage to come to them. And care homes in particular are really desperate for people to come and share heritage. It's a really hard job trying to provide stimulating activities every day for their residents, and especially if somebody has a special interest that they don't have experience of. So at the hub, we invited Daniel Ball from the Watercress Line to come and do us a session. He brought along a video. He told us about the history of the line, lots of videos of steam trains, and you could hear the sounds of the clattering on the tracks and the whistles. Some objects to handle with heavy cast iron signs, some hats to wear, oil and coal in the smell boxes, and flags. We did some signalling. And that was great. Everybody had a really fantastic time. And I think for them, it was probably as good as having gone on a trip. They all went home so happy. But you don't even have to be in a heritage setting or have objects from the past to start a reminiscence. This chap had been a policeman all of his working life, so we invited in the local PCSO, and they had a great time chatting, comparing the job now and then, and looking at his modern uniform and equipment. Memory boxes are a great way you can engage with a care home. Put together a few items in a box that relate to either your heritage setting that you're trying to promote, a time period, or a particular interest. So knitting here, this lady was always interested in craft. Put together some notes with some prompt questions on them, drop the box off for a couple of weeks at a care home, and then go back and facilitate a reminiscence session. Memory boxes are particularly good for people in care homes who don't like to join in with the social activities, because the box can be taken into the room and it can be enjoyed by that person in their own time. So I've got a couple of boxes at home full of all sorts of things I've collected over the years. And so at the hub, if I'm doing a particular theme, I just put items together from the box into a suitcase, go in, and then opening up the suitcase and talking through all the items in the box. And the memories just flow. It's really fun to do. We do have to consider the age of the person. So I said we're looking at this 10 to 30-year-old memory bump. Someone with a young onset dementia, they will be having different memories to somebody in the 80s. And think about the country and the culture. People who've grown up in different countries that have different memories and different material cultures. So, for example, it wouldn't be appropriate to want to run a wartime cookery session with somebody who wasn't old enough to remember or wasn't in this country at that time. If you're welcoming people with dementia into a heritage setting, we've all got, lots of awareness around accessibility. There are some particular things around dementia which are not so obvious, and they're really well explained in this Rethinking Heritage Guide, which is Dementia Friendly Heritage Network produced that, and it's available for free download on the Alzheimer's Society. So definitely recommend that. I won't go into all these things now, but I mean, floors was really interesting. If you have a wavy pattern on a carpet, that can start to look like it's moving, someone with dementia, and it can even look like snakes, can be quite terrifying. If a black floor will look like a hole, and even just a black mat, you'll see people around it, not over it. And if it looks shiny, it will look wet. So these things can stop people in their tracks. So if you're welcoming people into your setting, have a look at that guide. It's got a great checklist of things to bear in mind. I'd really encourage anybody that has a heritage setting to open up like a memory cafe, something like that. Run a little event once a month, invite people in, let them explore your collections in their own time and own way. And I really, really urge people to please take heritage into these communities. They're absolutely desperate, and the well-being benefits are just enormous. If you need any training in the Alzheimer's Society, has this great Dementia Friends session. It's online or in person, less than an hour, and you'll have a really great insight into dementia. So hopefully some of that may have inspired you to engage more with your dementia community. If you need any help doing so, please get in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wonderful. Right, we're going to go straight on to our final presentation now, which is from Sophie Duchandon. Sophie's going to talk to us about heritage and dementia supporting practitioners. Sophie, thank you.
Good afternoon. So first, let me read this quote. I don't think anybody other than me and my team realize the emotional toll of this job. So this is an extract from an interview I conducted with a museum practitioner working with people living with dementia. So what is this emotional toll? So when I was studying for my MA, I came across a research that identified museum well-being activities to emotional labor. And this research also highlighted that this work could pose a risk to practitioner health. So because I have a background in psychology and in human resources, that caught my attention, and I decided to look for other research on the subject. And I found that all this research shared the same conclusion, that support for emotional labor is critical. So I decided to explore how this recommendation had been implemented in museum and heritage organization. And last summer, I conducted a research with practitioners working with people living with dementia. This is going to be the subject of my presentation. Before, let me share some context. So in 2016, the National Alliance for Museum Health and Wellbeing conducted a survey, and the people living with dementia were listed as the second largest audience for health and well-being activities. And with a projected increase of 78%, which is huge, by 2040 of the number of people living with dementia, there is clearly a need for these activities. So, and who's at the front of this? The practitioners. Yeah, so their role is really important. Sorry. So now I want you to imagine that you are living with dementia. So you might lose your ability to carry out daily tasks, or you might struggle to engage in conversation. And for you, when you engage with these dementia activities, what is really important is to feel safe and supported. And this is the role of the practitioners facilitating those activities to maintain the right environment during the activities. That might sound easy, but it requires the practitioners to perform what is called emotional labor. And to do this, the practitioners must work on their own emotions. They must control their feelings and, if necessary, suppress negative feelings to present a friendly and smiley face throughout the sessions. They must also read the participants' emotional cues to ensure they have the right behavior with them and to support their emotional needs. And they must do that, so work on their own emotions and on the participants' emotion whilst leading the activity. So you might think, well, what's so special about this work? Other roles in museum and heritage also have to perform emotional labor. For instance, people working in visitor services or museum educators. What's special with this work is that you are working with participants who are vulnerable. And this gives the work the dimension of care. It's a fairly recent, care work is a fairly recent focus for museum and heritage. And it is a work that requires specific support for those performing it, because it could put practitioners at risk of emotional exhaustion if not properly supported. So now I'm going to share with you the main findings from the research I conducted. So first, a brief introduction to this research. The focus were the practitioners working with people living with dementia. And the objective was to explore how the recommendation to support practitioners with emotional labor, how this recommendation had been implemented in museum and heritage organizations. So I worked with 6 organizations and I conducted 18 interviews. And each respondent was asked to comment on the role of emotional labor, to share their perception of the support available in their organization for emotional labor, and also to put forward their recommendations. So my initiative, my research was well received, and this confirmed my intuition that this was an area in need of focus. So this research generated 3 main findings. The first one is that is a confirmation that emotional labor is central to the work of practitioners working with people living with dementia. And it is also a confirmation that this work could pose a risk to their health if not properly supported. And to illustrate this, I'm going to share with you 3 extracts from the interview I conducted. I think it's probably the most important thing to manage, said one. It is hard when you do have other things going on in the background, whether it's at work, at home. It takes a lot of effort and energy to be that positive person. And a third person I interviewed said, I do feel it's quite draining. So I think this speaks for itself of the emotional toll that some practitioner can experience when doing this work. So the second finding is that there are 5 main factors impacting emotional labor. The first one, the activity location. So the activities can take place on site and they can take place off site in hospital wards, daycare centers, or resident homes. And when they take place off site, practitioners have less control over the session's delivery conditions. So they might have organized, for instance, an activity for 6 people and need a table and think they will have 2 carers with them. And they arrive at the care home and they are told, well, we need you to run that activity for 12 people. And actually you won't be having a table. You have to use that small room and there's only 1 carer available. So that can be quite stressful. Frequency of contact with participants. When the sessions are running regularly, this tend to be conducive to bonding between practitioners and participants. practitioners start to care for participants. They know about them, they know about their family, they meet their carers, and they continue thinking about the practitioners after the sessions. Practitioners' professional background and experience. So because this work takes place with vulnerable people, and it's, as I said, it takes the dimension of care work, whether someone, a practitioner, has experience or training in providing care work is important. Practitioners' personal experience of people living with dementia. If practitioners have to care in their home for a relative living with dementia, it means they have to perform care work at home and then at work, and this can be overwhelming. Sorry. Oops. The quality of the team relationship. Do practitioners feel that they can rely on their team for support, or do they feel they're alone in this? That's another important factor. And the third main finding from this research is that support for emotional labor is multifaceted, and I've organized this support in three main categories. So first, emotional support. This is mostly about listening to someone's concern and providing a safe space for them to offload and express their emotions. So support for this could be, for instance, team debrief, peer review after a session. The second type of support is informational support. This is about providing practitioners with useful information here about dementia to help practitioners understand the condition of the participants they're going to run the session with. This could be, for example, dementia awareness training. It's also about providing key information to practitioners to help them look after their own health and well-being. So that's, for example, for practitioner, stress awareness training or resilience training. And the third category of support is instrumental support. This is mostly about providing practical help with the session's delivery conditions, especially if they take place off-site. So it's, for example, agreeing on terms and conditions with the care centers and agreeing on the number of participants for the sessions, how they will run, what material or support is needed, these sort of things. But it's also about providing a professional counseling to practitioners, for instance, providing clinical supervision with a psychologist. Some organizations have organized this sort of support. So with these 5 factors impacting emotional labor and these 3 categories of support, I'm proposing a framework to assess the emotional demands placed on the practitioners and to address those demands. And I believe that museum and heritage organization should have formalized support strategy for this kind of work. And I'm proposing this framework as a toolkit to design and implement individualized support programs. So not one size will be working for everyone, but having a sort of structure and then adapting this structure to every practitioner and throughout the years, because the practitioner's personal situation or their team might vary. So being aware of that and not saying this is set one for all and that's it. So I think this is really important this is one of the elements for the sustainability of museum and heritage wellbeing practice, is to look after the practitioners, because again, this care work is not the work that museum and heritage are used to. This is a fairly recent focus, so we need to really take care of those practitioners. Thank you.
Right, I'm going to ask our 3 speakers, could you come and stand on the stage, please? Sorry, I need to go back there to help people who are online listen. Thank you. And so over to you, the audience. Any questions? Kimberly.
Hi, I've got one for Jess. volunteering and continuity of engagement for older people. I'm curious where you've done your research. Do you ever come across what we've got in Wales, where actually our statutory bodies and our museums now are trying to get rid of their older volunteers because they are describing them as too representative of the group who's been volunteering for years?
So in my research, I've not come across that, and I haven't come across that at work either. So I currently work for English Heritage, and we're desperate to cling on to the older volunteers. But I have encountered a similar sort of view. So when I was trying to find the people to participate in my research, I was reaching out to all these sort of social groups, and I did have somebody say, we're not going to share your message because we don't want to perpetuate the view that it's only older people interested in that kind of thing, and that you're just contacting us because you think we're full of old people. So I sort of know the lines you're getting on, but no, I've not experienced that. And to be honest, in my work, the vast majority of volunteers we have are older people. It's either older people who are retired and have that free time and generally have a career related to education, or perhaps they're ex-teachers and they want to continue honing those skills. Or we have the other end of the spectrum where we have very young people, sort of teenagers, very early 20s, who want to work on their confidence as well. Yeah, sorry.
Hi, Sophie, you mentioned practitioners, and just in your response just now you mentioned volunteers. So I think the toolkit that you mentioned would be beneficial for practitioners and volunteers who work with people living with dementia. Have you considered how you can share your toolkit out across not only Heritage but also the NHS?
No, I haven't thought about it. I do believe that the NHS has a kind of well-being framework, and that it includes some emotional dimension, but I will look into it. Yeah,
Okay. Could we have a chat afterwards? I'd be happy to help.
Absolutely, yes.
Brilliant. Thank you. Anyone else with a question? Yes. Right.
Cheers. My question's for Jess as well. Jess, loved your talk, love your research. I just wanted to ask you, with what you're doing, did you find any change in the depth of positive outcome for those individuals who were involved in heritage spaces, so kind of the people you're talking about being on benches and just enjoying being in a safe space they could just dwell in, and the people who are contributing directly to the management of the heritage or a heritage initiative of some kind? I'm thinking of our older people with our B17. I don't know if you saw our talk earlier.
Yes, no, I did.
Cool.
So what?
So was there a positive? Was there a difference in the depth of those positive outcomes for the people who were dwelling and the people who were directly contributing?
So what I'm seeing actually is there's a huge increase in the awareness of managers of historic places. They're really beginning to engage with those wellbeing benefits. And the quote about the ability to dwell actually came from a learning officer who works directly with older people and dementia. So I'm seeing there is a huge expansion, especially spearheaded by things like this. But yeah, no, managers in historic places and doing heritage activities, they're really beginning to understand how positive, their spaces are for people, for older people in particular.
Thank you. Any other questions? I've got one for Helen.
Okay.
Clearly, you were talking about some of the differences between going out and bringing people to you. Which one do you think works best?
I think going out to people, people who can't get out and access heritage can, the benefits of heritage being brought to them is so enormous. I would hate to be in that situation where you're just trapped and you're just, got the TV and some books and I need more, but you can't get out and get it. So I think outreach is the way.
Brilliant, which is actually really how do we find ways to go to our audience and speak to them rather than the other way around saying
just go to them, speak to any care homes and they'll be very pleased.
Brilliant. And anybody else with another question? Yes.
Just a quick question for Jess. Did you find, you're talking about people finding heritage spaces to be like a safe space where they felt they could spend time. Were there any groups of older people or individuals that you found didn't have that reaction, had a more complicated relationship? Yeah, there were actually. So there was one man in particular who took part in my photographs project, and he was initially from one very deprived area of Nottingham, and he's since moved to a much nicer area of the city. But he didn't like it. He said he had no history and no heritage in the area. You know, when he walked around the streets, there was no personal connection. He didn't have, buildings that he'd grown up in visiting. There was no sort of familial ties for him there. And he actually spent the vast majority of his time getting the bus back to this old, really deprived area that he used to live in, because he said that's where his heritage was. He went to the over 60s social group. He went and played bingo. He went to the cinema. And he said that he likes going for walks around, but he only likes going for walks around to sort of see how things have changed in the course of his own lifetime. So for him, his heritage was really deeply embedded in the place he'd grown up, which meant he didn't have a positive experience of living in his current area at all. And because of that, he didn't engage with any of the heritage or historic places. He simply just didn't go there. He went back to where he used to live. And that was really, really interesting. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. One more question, and then I've just got one I'll finish off on.
A question for Helen. You mentioned the rethinking heritage in terms of the advice and guidance for people working with people living with dementia. You also mentioned early onset dementia and people from different cultures and backgrounds and so on. Does that particular document include ideas and top tips for young onset and culture?
Yes, I believe it does. I haven't studied it in great detail. I wasn't involved with it, but from reading through, I think it does. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I just, again, thank our three speakers. I thought what was fascinating is again, these three different perspectives of actually looking at the same subject. I think finishing on this idea that actually we've got to look after ourselves as well in this conversation, that actually we are exposing ourselves to challenging scenarios is really, really important. If we're not healthy, how can we help other people and do that? And that idea of that emotional impact, I thought was really, really powerful. It also struck me just how many people in our community will be developing dementia moving forwards. If we look at this room, that means quite a number of us might be having this conversation as well, which does in one sense highlight the power of our conversations to keep talking, but it also really does highlight how we could all do with learning some of these skills. Sophie, some of the skills and the issues that you were actually talking about, these are actually things we might need to get very familiar with in our own lives. Brilliant. Thank you all. That's the next session done. Really fascinating. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Hi everyone. I'm tempted to start just because I know that we have three really good presentations and I want to have time for everyone and for Q&A. So if it's okay with you, oh, thank you. Thanks for this note of hand. We'll start, and this one is the first of two kind of sessions on heritage and social prescribing. So most of you know me, you know that I'm involved quite a lot with this, and I work also with the National Academy of Social Prescribing, have some of my colleagues from NASP as well. And we're trying to raise the profile of our sector in that area and share more examples of what's possible through interventions with different parts of the sector. In this session today, we have some really brilliant examples of archaeology specifically on adding to this and demonstrating the impact on different groups in needs and communities. But we'll start actually with an example from Northern Ireland, and a colleague there, her name is Beth Fraser from Northern Ireland Environment Link. She wanted to be here. She couldn't come, unfortunately, from Ireland for the conference, but she pre-recorded her presentation. If I can, at the end, if we have time on Q&A, I'll get her on Teams, potentially if you have a question for her. But without further ado, we'll go straight to her video. So let's see if we'll be able to hear.
Hello, thank you for inviting me along. My name is Beth. I work for the Northern Ireland Environment Link, which is the umbrella organisation for the environment sector in Northern Ireland. We work in many different areas such as education, climate action, heritage, sustainable foods, agriculture and policy. Today I'm here to present to you on our social prescribing project, Heritage for Health. Today I'm going to talk about the Heritage for Health project overall, and this will include an overview of the social prescribing relevant to this project. Heritage for Health is supported by the National Lottery Heritage Fund and delivered in partnership with Healthy Living Centre Alliance and Northern Ireland Environment Link. It's a new and innovative regional model combining mental health recovery with natural recovery. It's designed to bring direct benefits to health service users whose mental health has been adversely affected during the pandemic, and at the same time to involve more people in accessing our natural heritage sites and activities. It's based across Northern Ireland in all 5 trust areas. NHS England describes social prescribing as an approach that connects people to activities, groups and services in their community to meet the practical, social and emotional needs that affect their health and well-being. The delivery of social prescribing projects is different for individuals' health and needs and different groups. When I talk about it today, it's in the context of the Heritage for Health project. I'm going to show you a short video from the Spring programme, previously delivered by the Healthy Living Centre Alliance. This animation explains social prescribing in a more creative and concise way than I ever could.
Our health is impacted by a wide range of factors, including our housing, education, nutrition, work, the quality of our relationships, and our connectedness with the community in which we live. Social prescribing takes a wide view of our health. It looks at the whole person in order to appreciate and understand. There may be things affecting our health and well-being which are not always medical. Spring social prescribers are operating throughout Northern Ireland and Scotland and are here to help and support you. A GP, healthcare professional or pharmacist can make a referral on your behalf to Spring Social Prescribing. The social prescriber, based in a community-led health organisation, will contact you and spend time exploring what matters to you and which activities and local supports could improve your health and well-being. You can co-create a health plan and choose which supports you would like to try. That might be taking part in talking therapy, walking groups, or outdoor activities, exercise classes, yoga, tai chi, arts and crafts, or helping you get the right advice in relation to housing, benefits, or finances. The social prescriber will provide you with support on your health journey. Social prescribing is here to help you on the pathway to better health and well-being. To find out how it can work for you, contact your GP, healthcare professional, or pharmacist today.
Social prescribing has a benefit to the individual, the health service, and the community. When social prescribing works well, it helps to alleviate the pressures on our health service and saves time and money. The service user is referred to social prescribing. This referral could come from a GP, healthcare worker, social worker, or signposted from other organisations. People can also self-refer to Heritage for Health through the Healthy Living Centre, through recruitment posters, social media, or coordinators. For this project, all of these have been pathways onto the programme. For example, I had a community health worker contact our organisation Facebook page looking for more information and asking to refer a client. I was able to direct them towards a programme which was outside their area and they wouldn't have known about otherwise. Once the project is underway, it is hoped that participants will see small and increasing outcomes for themselves and their health. This is measured through Outcome Star, which I'll come back to later. Through the Spring programme, for example, outcomes and benefits have been recognised by health professionals. This video shows Dr. Malloy describing the benefits of social prescribing at his practice.
A newish idea, but basically what it has recognised is that the traditional model of delivery of healthcare is not really working. Patients attending doctors and being prescribed treatments is not alleviating the ongoing increasing costs on the health service, and there has been a recognition that alternative models of care are needed. Social prescribing, therefore, is a good method by which doctors and other health professionals can refer to coordinators who look at the overall picture of a person in their own homes, in their own environments, and suggest methods whereby they can interact with the communities. Such services would be just attending a service in the community to provide exercise, even to just get social interaction with other people. Perhaps specific clubs for illnesses such as diabetes, where they can interact with other people with those problems and try and learn in a peer support type manner. So it's looking at the overall picture of a person, putting a package together for them that doesn't rely on prescription medications, referrals to hospital, and it therefore increases the patient's self-reliance, the patient's well-being, and the benefits to the whole community. And obviously the attraction to the health service and the reason why money is directed towards it is hopefully it reduces people's reliance on statutory health care. Involving social prescribing and the overall package of the care allowed these people to get back into the community, integrated in the community. These particular people attend now the gas yard site where they do exercise classes. They have developed good friendships with people. And I mean, whenever I look at several patients in particular, we just see that the number of attempts at the surgery here has decreased quite remarkably.
Heritage for Health follows the same health session guidelines as the Better Days Pain Management Programme, also delivered by the Healthy Living Centre Alliance. Health sessions are delivered by anchor facilitators or external facilitators on sleep, relaxation and breathing, nutrition, and Take 5. The project has 2 part-time coordinators working with 10 healthy living centres located all over Northern Ireland. We have at least 10 heritage partners, and some groups have worked in conjunction with more than one heritage partner. This may have been due to timings, availability, or access need to be able to achieve what they wanted for their participants. I've put 150 plus participants. This seems to keep on growing. Currently, we're at 191 participants. We had suggested 15 participants per group, but the Healthy Living Centres had such an interest in this project that some of them have up to 20 and 25 in their group. If it's within budget and they can accommodate it and the participants are getting a meaningful experience, then that's okay. 20 sessions of delivery. Some of the feedback we had shows that combining sessions has worked really well for the groups, and they'd like to continue doing this. Each session is a minimum of 90 minutes, but some groups have reported back that they've ended up spending half days and full days out with their groups. They have enjoyed it so much. 20 sessions could take up to 20 weeks, so it's a big commitment, and it's designed to have and show meaningful engagement. We have 10 anchor facilitators for the project. It was important for the project and for the participants that consistency of the facilitator was throughout the sessions. This means that the same health worker has the understanding of the individual's needs and health issues. The heritage facilitators or the team member may be changing. That depends on what's being delivered on that day or that week. So if it's a tour, a talk, a visit, or an activity, that heritage partner could change. But the participants still have the same health facilitator throughout. Participants surveyed so far have a wide range of health and wellbeing issues as the reason for taking part. Some of them are unexpected, but I'm so pleased that they're able to access the programme and get the help that they need. The survey included the key areas we expected, but the range is much wider, including cancer, bipolar, bereavement, arthritis, among many others listed here. The project delivery is based on Take 5. This is the Health Services Guide to Health and Wellbeing. Be active, connect, take notice, keep learning, and give. These lend themselves really well to Heritage for Health by getting outdoors, meeting new people, taking notice of heritage and the natural environment, learning about the heritage themes and connections with nature, volunteering and giving back to help heritage and nature recovery. I have been really impressed with the heritage partners the Healthy Living Centres have made and that they have been working with. You can see here the 10 main partners and their localities, but I know people have branched out and visited other organisations and locations too. The sessions that I've been able to visit, I've been so impressed with. So much has been packed into the session and so much has been achieved in a short space of time. Anyone I've had the pleasure of speaking with who's participating is really enjoying and getting a lot from the programme. The health facilitators are really starting to see the benefits of engaging with heritage. Even the photographer and videographer that we have on the project have given great feedback and interviewed some of our participants and partners. On the films, the positivity about the programme is also reflected. As an insight of some of what has been happening and to celebrate how diverse the delivery has been so far, I have some of the group's photos and some of the professional photos to show you. Every Healthy Living Centre that we are working with has a different delivery. It's just a different approach. It isn't a project template that everyone sticks to. Every location have a different approach to suit the participants and the local heritage. Some locations have tried new things, and when other groups have seen these, they've wanted to try the same thing, such as cold water therapy or a heritage quiz. Many Healthy Living Centres have taken their delivery to the heritage sites and had movement, music and health talks in the heritage buildings. Sessions have also followed trends such as cold water therapy, forest bathing and foraging. And the delivery has navigated around the seasons and the calendar celebrations. I have been out at some of the heritage sites to attend the delivery and have enjoyed getting outdoors, visiting the heritage sites and taking part in activities. We have been warmly welcomed and witnessed so many positive experiences and engagements with the groups. Photography and video is a really great way for us to see how the group are enjoying the programme and capture them taking part. Expressions, connections, and the surroundings, whether that's through built heritage or the natural heritage. Alongside the visual evidence, we have a front and end survey based on the Warwick Edinburgh scale and the Northern Ireland Environment Link Social Prescribing Toolkit. Through the project, we have been able to train all of our facilitators in Outcome Star, which has allowed us to measure all of the health and well-being outcomes, no matter how small, and the achievements the participants have made on a personal level throughout the project. Each Healthy Living Centre will be completing at least 4 case studies. Case studies for heritage and health are different things. I realised this quite early in the project, that the health sector talks about a case study as a person in a more scientific way. For example, this 55-year-old case study's blood pressure decreased due to this project. But for the heritage sector, a case study is more about the stats, how aims and objectives were met, and the learning and engagement achieved. So we've combined the two, and we'll provide the facilitators with the templates so everyone comes back with consistent information. This is something to bear in mind if you're working on health and wellbeing projects yourself. I've incorporated a facilitator survey. We wanted to find out from them how the project has been. This will be based on the same themes as the participants were asked about. Heritage for Health is a new departure for all the health workers, but they have been commenting and reporting back how well it's been going for the group, that they can see the benefits already. My concern was that this information wasn't being captured anywhere officially, which is when I introduced the facilitator survey. We are using external evaluators for this project. Alongside the professional video and photography, our anchor facilitators are excellent at posting about the project, especially photos, which is great. So often I'm at my desk coordinating the project, and it's lovely to see all the photos coming through of everyone enjoying the delivery. I've also recorded our first ever podcast talking about the project so far. This included case study information and interview soundbites from facilitators and participants. It's hoped that these will act as audio case studies and highlight the project long after the funding is finished. I think people are more likely to listen to a podcast than read along with a case study. It could widen our reach, and our participants can also enjoy them. While we listen to a little of the podcast now, please scan our QR code, which will direct you to the podcast. You can listen wherever you get your podcasts. So even looking at it from that point of view, it's something that people have known throughout history. Now, obviously, our reliance on medication is a lot more, and it's more available to us. So people would have been doing things like going to live at the coast because there wasn't the medication that maybe they needed then.
Or going to the sun, but we'll not get much of that here.
Yeah, yeah. Northern Ireland has so much history and heritage sites that we can learn from and use, both built heritage and environmental heritage. And we're so lucky to live in beautiful surroundings with green spaces and blue spaces on our coastline. It's scientifically proven that green spaces and blue spaces help with your health and well-being. It's really a new departure for the health facilitators too, but everybody is reporting back that they're really enjoying it. They talk now with a passion and an interest in heritage about locations that they have visited and engaged with through the project. And of course, the benefits of social prescribing have to be a personal highlight for me. Hearing how the project is impacting lives in small and big ways can have a real lasting result on people's health that go far beyond this project. Some of the findings from the project so far include much higher interaction with men than the likes of the Better Days project, and we think that that's because of the heritage theme. Many people surveyed so far, which is only about half of the participants, highlighted an interest in heritage and an understanding of the importance of the natural environment. We hope that this will continue to increase as the project goes on. Surveys on health can be difficult to gauge, as how somebody's feeling can change day to day, and they could be having a good day or a bad day on the particular day that the survey is done. It seems like a lot of our participants went down the middle for some of the questions on how they were feeling, so we hope to still see that increase. What the participants expect to gain from attendance is rated very high on what we are delivering, which shows a positive direction and good potential for an increase in improving health and wellbeing. Some of the feedback that we have received so far includes our Heritage for Health group just had an amazing evening right on our doorstep. This project is a new departure for us, but these sessions have left us in no doubt that health and heritage are excellent bedfellows. Excellent idea, absolutely amazing day, fantastic day, loved all the history, we'll visit again soon. Absolutely fantastic. As the project isn't finished yet, I don't have the survey data to be able to show you the outcomes in visuals. I do have some feedback from some case studies on individuals, which I think it's important to share because at the heart of all of this work are the people who are involved.
It was through the Carers Association that I received the information and signed up to come along to the group.
And how are you finding the group? Have you felt that it's helped you in what you need from the group? Have you been enjoying it?
Yes, I've been enjoying it a lot. Now, today the highlight was the cold water immersion, and that's something that I've wanted to do for quite some time, and it lived up to expectations. And the lady that led it, she was very knowledgeable and knew her stuff. I really enjoyed that.
Okay, and have you felt that there's been any benefits to your health from attending the group just a couple of weeks that you have been here?
Yes, well, this is the third week now, and it is the mindfulness, the taking a moment for yourself every day. You know, since I started that, the group have started to do that and take a wee bit of time for myself, usually first thing.
As I say, I live about 15 miles away. Come down here for the day for the club that I'm associated with on the Monday, and to see the history so close on our doorstep is very fascinating. I went down in the Robinson Centre, and to see you're able in touching distance of books that are so old, it was I would say to anybody, if you're in Armagh, take the time to come. Just any sites here is only 2 minutes apart.
I have gained a whole new experience of heritage and what it means, and have learned to appreciate the natural resources on our doorstep. The model of the star helped to break my life issue down into separate areas. This facilitates planning. One area and only small changes at a time. I have reduced, but not removed, some of my pain medication. My diet has improved, partly because this extended course kept well-being at the front of my mind. Going on the heritage outings has given me a whole new outlook on the heritage around my local area and surrounding areas. Going to places I did not know were accessible to me, which I have enjoyed so much, with some on my doorstep that I did not know existed. I recently read some feedback which mentioned that one of the participants enjoyed a talk about the reintroduction of red squirrels at one of the heritage sites so much, she now volunteers there and continues to work on red squirrel conservation.
Quite a bit, which I allowed because she's not here. She's not going to be able to take questions at the end, but still we have 2 more fantastic projects that I wanted to have time to hear about. Still we heard a lot of feedback, which is positive, and I'm glad that we were able to do that. Always feels horrible to interrupt people, especially when they talk about experiences. But if that's okay with everybody, and specifically with my colleagues from the York Archaeology Trust, I would like to move to the second presentation, which is from Christina and Aaron, about their very, very well-known archaeology on prescription project, but I think this time with a little different perspective, more focus on the participants. So, Aaron, so please come.
Very good. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for sticking out to the end. It's good to see so many people still here. We're going to take you from Northern Ireland to glorious North Yorkshire now, where we've been applying social prescribing in the context of a complex urban excavation right by the city walls of York. And we're going to talk particularly about how we've made that environment accessible to people, and also how people respond to those measures and help us design them. So I'll hand over to Christina to let us
so we're going to
begin
the first
the
slide.
down one.
So archaeology prescription, I'm going to do a quick run through. I think most people should have or may have heard about what we're doing. If you haven't, we'll be around for the next couple of days as well. But we want to get to the nitty-gritty of what we want to get down to. We are just about to start our third year of the project. Actually, we got a new cohort starts Monday. So busy. We aim to improve health and well-being, fostering meaningful social connections, building self-esteem and confidence. The programme runs over a year, with participants having 2 7-week-long fieldwork sessions, along with a 15-week winter programme, which is more indoor. We do archive work and we do creative outputs as well. We also, after they graduate, we do a newsletter so they can have multiple graduate opportunities, which lead on to volunteering. And we've even had some people go into working in the heritage industry as well. So accessible, I'm going to stumble on that, aren't I? Archaeology. We have a real diverse audience that we work with. Our participants are referred to us from different avenues, from also directly from NHS through social prescribers, but also through local organisations which work with different groups of people in the local community, from everything from mental health needs to, I've lost track of more.
People recovering from addiction.
Thank you.
People with additional learning needs. It's a very mixed
It's a very mixed audience. So our sessions are people from multiple different backgrounds that all come together and have a nice curiosity for archaeology. We have made some adaptations to make it accessible for everyone, not just physical adaptations, but also for other needs as well. But we're very much participant-led. When our participants come through the door, we literally let them lead what the experience is for them. I start every session off saying we have like a pick and mix of different activities that they can choose which ones they want to do, and they can choose which activity they want to do in that particular session. But some of our participants just turn up is just enough to start the process for them. We have stage excavation, as you can see in the slide. We have multiple levels, so people don't need to be able to kneel and actually excavate down the floor. We have seating and adaptation tools, and they can dig in different positions as well if they wish to excavate. We do have fines washing as well, citing other activities. Staff training, we have a wide range of training, so we can try to make as adaptations as possible as we're going through the programme. We have a really low staff to participant ratio, so we can give our time and knowledge to people as and when they need it. Limited numbers, so we have stage social mixing, so we start off with quite small numbers and we move to larger groups of people as they progress through the programme. Just mention that. We also have a quiet space available, so if anyone does need it, they've got a space that they can go to, just have a bit of them time, and they can rejoin the group as and which they want to. We're constantly evaluating through the whole of the process, and we do find ourselves adapting as we're going along to individual participants' needs as we're going along through the process. And along with, we manage the enrolment and the endings as well. So it's very much a stepping stone programme, so every participant knows what the next step is along the process.
So all of that is designed to bring people the pure joy of archaeology. For anyone that's ever done digging before, sometimes you will find yourself completely lost in what you're doing, and we really want to bottle that and generally avoid medicalised language on site. This is a place where people can be archaeologists first It's a very unifying thing. One of our worries has been what the participant response to that is. Do people feel condescended? Do they feel othered? We have to make sure we're doing this fairly. So we created an accessibility survey that we've been running around. We're talking today about the kind of preliminary results from that. We're going to go a little deeper into it as time progresses. Basically, what we wanted to not assume was that we could do something really well-intentioned and have it not necessarily received as well as we thought it could be. And the general evaluation that we do as part of the program is overwhelmingly positive. We were really worried that people had just had a great time, were very grateful for it, and being almost excessively positive in their feedback because they don't want the project to end. They want other people to enjoy the same benefits they have. There's also the joy of a longitudinal evaluation. So people further down the line after they've graduated from the program, they've reflected on it. As Christina says, some people have gone on to independent volunteering, employment. We can see how they're doing and how they've considered that after a longer period of time. And we've had some unexpected themes as well, which we're going to go through the questions now. There's 6 ones that we've picked out. We had quite a few responses. So we've picked out ones that really caught our eye to share with you. First one was how the accessibility measures had, what kind of impact that had on the time on the program and which ones people preferred. I won't read out all the responses, but we're going to kind of draw out a couple of themes that came out of this. Quite a couple of people here have mentioned our quiet space. I've heard several other people mentioning these, and I think they really are best practice for any kind of heritage project. I think one of the sessions I saw earlier mentioned the busyness of a trench. It can be a lively atmosphere. There's a lot of laughter and conversation, but that can be overwhelming. Not many people used it, did they?
No, not many people used it, but the fact we actually had it set up from the get-go, they actually found it reassuring that they knew that space was available to them if they needed it.
Yeah, so I think that's something that people absolutely appreciate and would wholly recommend. Next up, as Christina's alluded to, we're taking people from different backgrounds, different age groups, different ethnic backgrounds, as well as socioeconomic. Mixing those people, different conditions, could that perhaps have a negative impact on the program? We had quite a mixed response here. Some people said that being in that group just made it feel normal. You know, they could not worry about it. One individual raised the issue that some people may be experiencing a negative response to something, could be challenging to be around. So there's certainly been a positive overall response to that, but as each person has their own needs, it doesn't come without challenges. So
I think it all depends on the people in that one session and where they are in their journey as well.
Yeah.
On recovery.
The really nice thing that we did see is that as people progressed through the kind of social mixing and forming bigger groups, there was a kind of peer support network organically forming. I think there's some real power in that we've seen. Next, we asked whether the accessibility measures kind of help you forget any needs that you may have, or perhaps think about them more. And we had a real mixed bag, didn't we?
Yeah, really mixed bag. A lot of people were appreciative of everything that we did on the site, but also a lot of people actually made them think about outside of our project and the access needs that they have and how it's actually inputting other parts of their lives.
Yeah, really mixed response, but overall definitely positive. There's one individual that springs to mind that used a walking aid to walk to site, but didn't use it at all on site.
And then walked off site with it.
Yeah, it was quite strange. We also wanted to know what improvements people may suggest. As Christina said earlier, we kind of, when people come to site, we generally say, right, tell us what you need, we'll develop it together, how we can make you achieve as much as you would like to. One person suggested divine intervention in climatic conditions, working on it, but not there yet.
Unfortunately, we work in Yorkshire.
We do indeed. Trenches are getting deeper. We've had handrails suggested. Some of the spaces for outdoor spaces were quite busy and loud. We may have to think about how we do that in the future, but I think the key takeaway from myself is that we got the participants into a space where they were happy to offer criticism and engage in that conversation. They weren't just trying to be overwhelmingly positive. So it was a really honest answer that we really appreciated.
Yeah, we try and keep the dialogue open with all our participants so they feel confident enough and comfortable enough to actually tell us any needs that we can adapt for them to engage in the project.
It's a nice environment. Next up, we asked, do you feel that your needs were fully considered on the programme? Did you feel comfortable discussing your needs with the staff? This is building upon that. I'm wanting a little bit more feedback. This was really, really positive, actually. Christina, clearly the star of the show, is particularly good at just getting people to express these needs and just feel comfortable and listened to. And I think that is absolutely key. And one thing that we drew from that was the mutual benefits. We can make one gentleman arrived not expecting to be able to get into a trench, and in the end we couldn't get him out.
Not because they couldn't, because they didn't want to leave the trench.
That's a very
Just say that.
Rise, yeah. But I think there's a mutual benefit. You know, because people are involved from the get-go, they feel comfortable to make these suggestions. We hopefully can make them then, and we benefit as well as the participant, which I think is really, really key. And then one that really I thought was important, as we mentioned earlier, this is meant to be an environment where you can just be an archaeologist, find things, discover, make interpretations. So he wants to know whether we'd achieved that kind of escapism and how this made people feel. Again, I won't read these out, but some of them did make me a little bit emotional. And I think it demonstrates that our worries about accessibility were probably excessive. I think we've learned it has to be considered. You can't assume that someone will necessarily like something. You can't assume there's a silver bullet that will suit everybody. But the whole process and the conversations that we have allow the experience to be immersive. And the top one there, we are all archaeologists. I like that. It's a unifying thing. So we'll summarise now. It's been a brief journey through our survey. We'll hope to discuss more about that and hopefully bring some interviews and videos to possibly a later publication. So accessibility absolutely can and should be embedded into wellbeing focused projects, but we do need to manage it carefully. Days like today are wonderful because we can all do our presentation, share experience, and make these contacts. But I think, Christina, making people part of the conversation as opposed to having adaptations made on their behalf, I think that's something that has to be kept.
As long as they feel comfortable and willing to talk about it, we want to keep that dialogue open. Even if they don't feel comfortable at the very, very start of the programme, they tend to sort of open up as they come through time. And if they see something's maybe not quite right for them, generally they'll let us know. But we have the flexibility on the project to make the adaptations as we go through the project.
Yeah, which leads on to the next part here. That I think accessibility measures become a given. You almost don't notice it. That is the kind of the flow that we've been hoping to achieve. And also, finally, that kind of sense of mutual trust. It fosters security, encourages people to actively engage. You're not just turning up, you're part of the team, you're helping design it. And the longer engagement that we have to people with subsequent evaluations such as this and later focus groups and volunteering means that the people that come through the programme could help to shape the future of it. And we're just really getting to grips with that now. So I think we're on time, Desi. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another brilliant example from York Archaeology. Thank you so much. And we'll carry on thinking about archaeology and what difference a dig can make. And it's my pleasure now to invite our colleagues from MOLA, Katrina, who was formerly with MOLA, but still, and her team, and also Elena from Delaprey, from our host here, who actually collaborated for a similar project, and they will tell you all about it. It's okay. You have to get out, actually. Yeah. Down there. You know what I'm doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, hello everyone. You made it to the final presentation of the day. Well done. We won't be offended if anyone has to rest their eyes during this presentation. So we are here today to talk to you about what is a relatively baby project compared to a lot of the projects that you've seen and heard about throughout the course of the day. But it is a new project, which is a collaboration between MOLA, so the Museum of London Archaeology, Delaprey Abbey, and Northampton General Practice Alliance. So to give you a bit of a background to the project, like I said, this was a brand new project for Delaprey and for the Museum of London Archaeology, where we were collaborating to deliver a new social prescribing project to improve the wellbeing of local Northampton community members by participating in, I put an archaeological excavation, but it's archaeological activity broadly. So it wasn't just digging, as we know archaeology is not just digging, but there were also other activities involved, including post-excavation activities and creative activities to investigate the extent and scale of the former abbey. And this was made possible because towards the end of 2022, MOLA secured an AHRC-funded Impact Accelerator account grant, the aim of which was to fund staff-led projects. So staff were supported to partner with a non-academic or charitable organisation with the aim of extending MOLA's impact beyond archaeology's usual audiences. And through this, Mola and Eleanor actually approached us, didn't you, at Delaprey, to come up with an idea and a pilot for delivering social prescribing using the existing contacts that Delaprey have with Northampton General Practice Alliance. Don't know if you want to say anything about the context for Delaprey in terms of setting up the project and where you were with Delaprey Wellbeing at the time.
We're really spoilt because one of our trustees is a GP. So anywhere else over this would have been much harder to get going. But we were lucky that we were already in a position where we had a strong relationship with social prescribers. We'd had funding. And David, our trustee, at that time was the chair of the General Practice Alliance. So, the group bringing all the local GPs together. So we'd already done a more general kind of green prescribing project at Delaprey. But we were looking to do something that built on the actual heritage of the site and sort of engage people with that. And yeah, the funding came. I spotted the funding. I was like, oh, very nice.
I think that point that Delaprey had that existing partnership with the General Practice Alliance is actually really crucial and is something we'll touch on throughout the partnership because I think it enabled quite a few opportunities, but I think also challenges at the same time. So that's a bit about the project background. In terms of the proposed outcomes that were in the bid, the first one of those was improved wellbeing for participants. That was the main aim of the project. And if our evaluation showed at the end that we hadn't achieved that, then we knew we were doing something very wrong. To strengthen the existing partnership between Delaprey and MOLA and also develop the new partnership between MOLA and the General Practice Alliance. To provide an opportunity for Northampton's communities to be involved in archaeology. So this was specifically aimed at people who never had a chance to take part in archaeology before, who were being referred through social prescribing link workers and met all of those requirements for social prescribing. So low to moderate mental health needs, chronic illness and other things. And increased knowledge about the history of Delaprey Abbey for the Trust, which Eleanor will go into a bit later. Upskilling MOLA staff in delivering wellbeing-led activities, because I think importantly, this is the first social prescribing and wellbeing-led programme being delivered out of MOLA's Northampton office. And quite a few of the MOLA London staff had experience of delivering wellbeing programmes with archaeology and heritage, but that was something that the staff team at MOLA Northampton in particular had identified as a kind of knowledge and experience gap. So it was bridging that gap, I suppose, between the two separate offices within the one organisation as well. And then providing a new addition to Northampton's social prescribing offer for General Practice Alliance. So I can't go into too much detail about the development process for the project because I've literally been here all evening and I'm sure you all want to get away and have something to eat and actually relax and rest your minds at this point. But I think one of the things that set this project apart from other social prescribing projects that I've worked on in the past, and I've been involved in developing social prescribing projects, both at MOLA and formerly at York Archaeology, which you just heard about, is that we developed this within an incredibly tight time frame. So we only had 6 months after getting the funding to plan, deliver and evaluate the programme. And that was in part because of the stipulations of the funding, but also because we received this funding in June And we know we wanted to deliver it before the end of the year. And anyone who's worked in archaeology will know that the weather is always the top consideration. And so we wanted to get people out on site before the cold set in. So we wanted to ideally get delivery started in September, which meant that we only had 2 months in total to set up the partnerships, to undertake co-design workshops, to plan the delivery model and sessions, to undertake the archaeological reconnaissance work, ensure that all the correct health and safety and RAMs were in place, provide training for staff, like I said, who never worked with beneficiaries with mental health needs before, to recruit staff. We didn't have a staff team to deliver this, so we recruited the staff from Mola's commercial field team, which I think has brought its own challenges that we can touch on later, and to put in place the safeguarding and enrolment process. And there's definitely loads that I've forgotten about that went into the development process. And I think it was a huge amount of work in those 2 months and a significant challenge, which I think we all underestimated a little bit. But I think when undertaken alongside the Northampton team's existing commercial commitments of business as usual, I think that raised a lot of questions about the prioritisation of this kind of work within commercial field units and within the archaeological sector generally. And we could say loads about that, but that's another whole presentation, I think. But one thing I will say is that, which was really positive in the project development stage, is that the enthusiasm for staff to get involved as a professional development opportunity was really positive, and we did have to sadly turn a lot of staff members away from getting involved in the project. So hopefully there'll be an opportunity. I'm looking at Claire, an opportunities to get some people involved in later iterations of the project. As I mentioned, with such a tight development phase of only 8 weeks, one of the successes was the existing partnership between Delaprey and General Practice Alliance, which meant that social prescribing link workers and the local PCNs were already really bought into the idea of referring people onto a heritage-related project. And I think that's a really key point to make, is that there was less need for kind of advocacy work and demonstrating the impact, because they'd already seen it through the other programs that have been run at Delaprey. So we were able to join their team calls and tell them about the new project, and they were really enthused and really keen to just get people prescribed onto this new pilot. And we successfully recruited 5 participants through the NHS. So I think this is the first social prescribing programme within archaeology that I'm aware of that has managed to have people prescribed through the traditional route from the outset. But we also did have the usual challenges that other programmes have found alongside that. And we did end up with quite a few self-referrals to make it up to a full cohort of 12 participants, and we delivered the project over 6 weeks. I could go on and on, but I'm going to pass over to Yvonne, who's going to tell you a bit more about project delivery.
Hello. To do this, in the end, there were 3 of us, Jenny, Calypso and me. We provided 6 sessions, which were sandwiched between a drop-in session to meet the participants, because of the nature of who they were. It was good to meet them beforehand individually, so they knew when it started where they were coming and felt safe to come. And at the end, because it was so short, we felt it was good to have a proper confirmed end activity, especially as they got very, very into it. They kept on the last few weeks, they were plotting how to extend it. So the final celebration reflection session we felt was important to have. As it was said, there were 12 participants, morning session, which had 5. No, it's the wrong way around. And then in the afternoon, we did discover 7 was too many. 5 showed 6 was ideal. We had a very good staff to participant ratio. So there were very mixed abilities because of partial of their age. So we could spend time separating ourselves out doing tasks. And one of the main activity was the 1 meter by 1 meter test pit. It was excavated, and you can see in the pictures It's right in front of the entrance. So, and you can see the people excavating. Some just couldn't bend down, or if they could, not for very long. So we came up with lots of other things they could do on site, which like GPS, which I absolutely loved. Even older technology, like the old-fashioned dumpy level, was very much appreciated for survey illustrations. You can see with drawing, and just a simple thing as people writing the contact sheets or even labeling the fines, taking charge of fines. Somebody finds it, they take charge of properly putting it in the fines bag, which is very important. So the sessions we delivered started off very much of an introduction, paperwork, and a very good tour by one of the participants. We wanted to give them a broader taste of archaeology as possible. So two of us are specialists, and we brought another specialist in who the participants absolutely adored, and it's quite good, interesting. One important aspect was we were allowed to get the old archive, the old finds, because over the years there's been so many interventions with all the work that's been going on here. So you had everything from the Romans up to medieval animal bones and everything. So we tried to revolve a lot of our identification sessions around what's actually been found here, where we could. The second picture, you can see one of the Roman pots that actually was found here. So luckily we were allowed to have that. It helped with other things like the introductions and session in November. So another session that what they appreciate and really liked were maps and drawings of this place, to see what this now and what was. It was very much appreciated. Once we started finding things, as you can see, we started the finds washing process, which allowed them to look much into what they've seen. And also to make it broad, we did have some craft activities, like making pottery, using air-dried clay, illustrating of finds, which was a bit mixed. But one thing was noticeable. It was so designed that people could do things simultaneously. If they felt that they couldn't excavate, they could stay behind to do another activity. But very quickly, they made it very clear they wanted to do everything. So we started off the session with a little presentation, and then we went out to excavate. Nobody wanted to be left behind. We always gave the option in the morning, said this is the activities, and they all wanted to do everything. So in 2 hours, we had to squeeze in absolutely everything. And we did, like a lot of these things had kind of a quiet activity, not a quiet space. It didn't quite work, which wasn't taken up. It was, we had all the reports printed out. So if people felt they needed to take time away, we had all the reports for them to read. What really happened is when we were discussing things, they were going to the reports to find the illustrations and the maps to make a point. So it's the GPS survey. You can just about see where the red dot is on the two benches. So that's what the participants did themselves with Calypso's guidance. So generally speaking, we did ask people what they thought. And as you can see, quite varied feedback. Generally speaking, it was positive. The only really, really negative thing is it was too short. So things like what they enjoyed was meeting and interacting with people, which was one of the main the reasons to do this project, to get people out of isolation and talk. And I loved finding and digging, as has been discussed before. That's one of the things that people love. But it was also being in the group. We've asked also the connection to Northampton. That was mixed because a lot of them were local. But here the map activity really came in. Wellbeing was improved. Generally speaking, positive. And it's like the very last comment was, it's not what we found, it's what we found in ourselves. So, carry on.
I'm conscious that we are running out of time, so I'm very, very quickly going to run through this. But we were just going to cover the outcomes for MOLA and DAP, so two of the main partner organisations, because that was a key focus of the grant, in that it was a partnership grant. So one of the main aims was the kind of strengthening and the developing of the partnership. And the kind of outcomes for the individual organisations were kind of designed into the project, I guess, from the outset. So what we found for MOLA, as some of the key outcomes, is that the Northampton's research and engagement team found that they were able to develop their skills and experience in delivering wellbeing programmes and hopefully feel more confident delivering wellbeing programmes. It succeeded in kickstarting a long-held ambition at MOLA to develop the engagement offer for its regional offices, which up until this point had very much been focused and centralised with the London team and the London office. It enabled MOLA to strengthen their position within the sector as a contributor to the field of wellbeing and heritage research, and has meant that we've been able to come and speak at this conference along with all of the other wonderful organisations that are doing great things in this sphere. And it fostered a new partnership for MOLA with an important health and social care organisation in Northampton, GPA, which facilitates social prescribing within the city. So that is a partnership that MOLA now has and can take forward to develop further projects. Eleanor, sorry, we've not given you any time.
That's all right. I think for us as the organisation, sort of hosting the dig or going after, something that we had aspired to do for a long time. It was actually one of the trustees asked me in my interview how I was going to get an archaeology dig happening here at Delaprey, because other than the restoration project, there had never been a dig for a dig's sake here. And I'd been involved in community archaeology projects in a previous job. I'm not an archaeologist, but I knew the benefit, the social outcomes. So when I saw the funding, I think it's Claire, I did email. I was like, oh, there's funding, Claire, can we do something together? It's just a really exciting opportunity. And the thing is, I knew that the outcomes would be strong. That wasn't the question. That's why I wanted to do the partnership. But the thing that we really wanted an organisation was to get archaeology happening here and to find things. So actually, for me, as the host sort of site, it's sort of the wrong way round, that we knew that would all be strong. That was sort of expected, and it was. And we were so lucky with MOLA because they put together a brilliant programme. It was just a great project. But what we wanted to get out of it was just like learning more about our site, actually. In previous, so we chose a particular spot out the front. It was recommended by the Finds Liaison Officer for the county, because she said, well, lots of people over 900 years will have walked over that. So even if you're near the top, hopefully you'll find a button or something that will be exciting for the participants. It's a 1 by 1 metre. We didn't think we'd find that much. I don't think we thought we'd really find anything much at all. We weren't going to go down very far. But what we did find were 2 game-changing pieces of pottery for us as an organisation. On the left there's a bit of roof tile. We now know that the roof was green. That's just super exciting for us, and we can tell the public about it. And the middle bit is a floor tile. We don't actually have a piece of floor tile on display at the moment that I begged the museum when they took it off display if we could have it for 3 years. So we've got it for 3 years, but now we can have this bit forever on display. I have to do a deal with Ben to send it to the archive, and then we can borrow it back again. So our plan is to put these 2 items on display, and it will really help us because it's really, when you look around, you're like, Cluniac Abbey, what? There's nothing here. But now we have tangible things to kind of show the design that was here, how rich it was. So that's really exciting for us. And then, as we put here, the peer-to-peer learning and the community drop-in. Again, it was actually a lot about just relationship building. The same for the participants. It's all about that sort of social interaction. I stood next to Claire for 2 hours on a cold Sunday, and we got to speak to 80 people from the public who were really interested, and it gave us a sense of actually there's a real demand in our community for more of this. But I also got Claire telling me all about the things that we were looking at, and I suddenly understood so much more about what I was looking at, because I did not recognise that roof tile as a roof tile. You know, the relationship that as a heritage site, but where you're not, that's not your area, being able to spend time with archaeologists and learn from them is really rich, and that's going to then be, you know, shared with the public in multiple different ways, through the exhibitions, through we can talk to our volunteers so that they have more information as well to share with the public, and then hopefully it will also lead to high, you know, more projects basically, and larger projects is the hope.
We're very behind time. I knew this would happen. So just the kind of last point, I guess, is the key takeaways, and what did we learn from doing this pilot specifically? Because I think we were conscious of sharing something with you that you might not have heard in other presentations. And some of the kind of key learning points were we definitely needed a longer lead-in time to develop the project, and that would have been more beneficial, I think, for us to recruiting participants, because we did find that we maybe didn't have enough time to give the social prescribing link workers effectively to explain what the project was to their clients and get people referred through that. So that's something we can definitely build on. However, utilising the existing partnership, like we've mentioned, between DAPT and GPA meant we could set the project up more quickly than we could have otherwise. And also, I think bringing in my existing experience of developing archaeology on prescription alongside Aaron and Christina meant that we had an existing flexible delivery model. And so it was interesting to test whether we could lift and shift that, which isn't often, as we know, advised for wellbeing programs, because they should be specifically tailored to meet local community need. But we did find that was a really good place to start from, in that the fundamental idea behind that model of just offering different activities is that it is accessible and it is inclusive for anyone who can come on to the project. I think, interestingly, with this project, there's a point around delivering grant-funded wellbeing-led programs alongside commercial work and using a team who is embedded within a commercial field unit. And there's a particular challenge there around legacy and resource, and being able to upskill staff and allow them to spend time on developing this as an additional offer alongside the commercial work. That probably is a whole other presentation, like I said, and maybe an interesting point to talk about elsewhere. But like Eleanor said, the main takeaway, I think, for all of us was that we just want to do more, and we want to carry this project on. And this has been a kind of tiny start, and we want to be able to develop it and get more people involved from Northampton's communities. So, sorry we went over, Desi. Forgive us.
The last presentation, so I think we all forgive them for eating into our Q&A. It's also the last session of the day, so there isn't another session that we're running to. If somebody has burning questions, please do ask them. I'm sure the speakers will be happy just for 5 minutes to stay and answer those. If not, you can grab them outside while you're talking to them, or maybe having a drink in about an hour if you're coming to the reception in the Guildhall in City Centre and the policy panel discussion. I'll pause just in case there are some very burning questions. Nurjahan first and then Kim, that's all right.
I have 2 questions.
Okay.
What made you deliver a group with lots of different groups of people? You might have a lot of people's group or learning stage. What made you combine everyone? And to the third speaker, you've delivered a wonderful presentation, just like everyone else did, in terms of your views of how the project went. Is there the GP practice allies, have they created their views and learning? Because I think if they haven't, it'd be wonderful for them to put things together, because their peers of the GPs and the care access and integrated care system would value hearing from their peers as to why social prescribing heritage works.
Aaron first.
First one, I think with the deliberate mixing of groups, that's focusing on the social side of social prescribing. Because the community we're based in is one of the more deprived areas of Europe. there is quite a mix need. We didn't universally do that. There were some groups that it was more sensible for safeguarding reasons to give them their own dedicated session. But the great benefit of putting people together is the unlikely friendships. Quite an elderly chat. And one young person that was transitioning gender was not what I would see, but really quite a lovely, meaningful friendship. And it's when you see people swapping phone numbers at the end, and I think in terms of short-term benefits and then longer impact, I think that's where the social focus is really helpful. Yeah.
For which I'm sorry if I forgot about the second question.
I mean, in short, the answer is no. We didn't get any kind of reflections from GPA. I think that their main involvement was really to recruit the participants and to provide any kind of advice on mental health awareness training and things like that. But I think because of the limitations of the project in terms of funding and time, I think it was very limited. But it would be something, I think, if the project was to develop further and we were able to secure more funding, that we would kind of approach the General Practice Alliance about. Sorry. So yeah, that's just a no, really.
For the York people, it's interesting because I've got a meeting tomorrow about setting up a similar project. So my question was, because it's one they've asked me to consider, are any of the people who've been referred to you already experienced archaeologists? And if they are, how would you deal with it differently with what involvement you gave them? I mean, particularly one thing affects me as well, but something that one of the potential mental health referrers wanted questions on was about getting partners to provide training that might engage into heritage employment. As I know you did mention, some of them have gone on to that, but that seems to be quite hard to get.
So most of our participants actually have never been involved in archaeology or heritage before. It's just a curiosity that's literally got them through the door in the very start of it. We've had a couple of people who have been interested or done their own little research, or they've been dying to get involved but never knew how to. But we start at a very baseline level and work everyone up together. By the end of the programme, because we are over a year time span, participants, we've had them identifying pottery from time periods and things by the end of it, and actually having their own curiosity and actually going on to do their own research project independently on their own. So it's not specifically training, it's more on the social prescribing element, or like the social interaction, but they are naturally getting them skills as they're going along through the process.
If I could just expand on that as well, we did have one person who had some previous archaeological experience that had worked professionally, I believe, but not in a long time because of a lot of the things that happened since to them. They were able to kind of take a bit of a lead role, weren't they, I think, and because we can give people that high level of supervision, when one person starts independently doing something that's really good and it's peer-to-peer, we just encouraged that and obviously observed it, but I thought it was fantastic. And for anyone, just to add on to your point, Christina, we do have a funding set aside for a training excavation for people that really want to go into it further. So that's an option people can do. And yes, so we've already had one person enter employment with the company. So quite an open mindset.
This is a really simple question. I just wanted to know how many people you actually had on site any one time. Yes.
Yeah, we have 6 is the magic number. And I think you said that as well, didn't you, Kat? I think it's lovely. Yeah. Yeah, I think 3 staff with kind of 2 people each they're kind of responsible for. It keeps the numbers down so that there's chatter and laughter, but it's not overwhelmingly loud. It's just like a nice kind of rumble. There's nothing to say you couldn't have multiple areas active with greater numbers, but then you'd need a much bigger site. Yeah, with the urban location. You're quite small, but I think, yeah, deliberately so. Yeah.
No, wonderful, thank you. Well, I would want to thank all our speakers and all of you for taking part in this session. It was brilliant to see so many wonderful examples of both archaeology and, well, using assets like this magnificent estate and house as well. So thank you very much. And just to remind you that we have the reception and the policy panel discussion tonight from 6 to 7:30 in the Guildhall in Northampton, central Northampton. So we have about an hour to get there. You're going to have a free drink bought from the Southampton Institute for Arts and Humanities. And then there will be also a paid bar if you want to have more. But more importantly, I hope there will be opportunities for you to meet and talk and also ask questions for our policy panel. Transport-wise, it's about 20 to 30-minute walk from here straight to town centre. Depends on how fast you walk. But if you have obviously issues with that, Del Prey colleagues will help you to call a taxi, which should be like a 5-minute taxi ride to there. And I hope to see you there. And tomorrow we start again at 10 o'clock. We're going to have Heritage and Social Prescribing Part 2 in room 1. And I forgot everything else, but there's a program and I can look at it if you want. Basically, this is the first session tomorrow. Sorry, the first session tomorrow in room 1 is Heritage and Social Prescribing 2. And in this room, in the library, right, at 10 o'clock, we'll have a workshop, actually, the past and the present, creating a community history toolkit for health and well-being, delivered by colleagues from the Manchester University. And then we'll carry on with our program. So hope to see many of you tomorrow as well. Thank you, and yeah, see you later.